Welcome to Be Ablaze. We're lighting a fire in you to move you from ordinary to extraordinary, living out your blaze for life. I am your host, Polly Hamp. Let's be ablaze. Have you ever been so disappointed that it felt like your whole body just shut down? Maybe you worked so hard for something only to watch it fall apart. Or maybe you trusted someone who didn't show up when you needed them. Or what about if you got a diagnosis that you didn't expect? You didn't get the job offer that you wanted. You didn't get accepted in the college that you were hoping for. A friendship fell apart. All of these different types of disappointments. Disappointment, as you know, is a normal part of life. But when you don't take the time to recognize it for what it is, those disappointments start to pile up. Our nervous system gets stuck in protection mode instead of healing. We start believing disappointment is inevitable. And before long, fear becomes the loudest voice in your head. Today, we're going to be talking about the power of disappointment, how to understand it, heal it, and use it as a pathway to freedom instead of fear. Let's talk about when disappointment takes over. Disappointment, as you all know, is normal, but unprocessed disappointment becomes toxic. When it piles up, our nervous system shifts from connection and curiosity to protection and fear. You start avoiding risk, joy, and new opportunities to keep you from being hurt again. And you might even feel stuck or numb because your body is trying to keep you safe from more of the same. This past, couple of months, I have navigated a really big, surprising disappointment. Earlier in August, I was presented with some information and news that might give me an opportunity to help resolve the rheumatoid arthritis that I was diagnosed with back in 2009. And so I started doing the work and the processing to get the information I needed to hopefully do some things that would heal it or at least resolve it and give me some relief. And so I went and had all the testing done, and I had some mouth surgery done. I had an infected root that was in the back of my mouth, and it was left after an extraction, and there was infection inside that root, pretty prominent when they did the big, huge mouth scan. And there is lots of information out there about different mouth dentistry work that if your mouth has infection, it could be causing some of the autoimmune diseases that we're experiencing today. There's some incredible research. There are some incredible stories. First, I had to get the infection under control. And so I worked on for about a month of that, being incredibly hopeful about the surgery. And I then went and got the root. Wow, it's still kind of fresh. I went and got the root taken out and the infection and all the gunk that was with it. I was so hopeful that maybe this was going to be the thing where I don't live in constant pain every single day. Yeah. And it wasn't. It wasn't the thing. Now, I will say it is good that I got the infected root out of my mouth. It was good that I got the infection and the poison that was going throughout my body. But the hope that I had for the resolution and maybe even the complete healing of the rheumatoid arthritis was very high. And when it didn't happen, it was devastating. It wasn't just this, little disappointment of, this thing didn't happen. It was devastating, and it put me in a funk. It probably for a few weeks, and I still had conferences, I still had things to speak at, I still had to go to work and do all these things and put a smile on my face, and I love what I get to do, and I was living with a deep sadness and disappointment of something that I had so hoped for and didn't get. So when disappointment becomes your story, your nervous system builds walls instead of bridges. And that's what happened to me for those several weeks, probably about 3 to 4 weeks after the surgery and it not having the effect of what I was hoping it would have. I went into a funk. And this is my job. This is what I do. I help people on the daily for almost a decade getting out of stuck patterns, healing. And when it is overwhelming you, it is a whole place of, okay, I know the right things to do. I know what this is, and I know this is disappointment. And it is hard for me to get out of it because my hope was so high and I felt the rug was pulled out from under me. So let's talk about how disappointment shapes our beliefs. Each disappointment has the potential to plant a belief in our mind. And it can be, I'm not smart enough. I can't do anything right. Why even try? It doesn't matter. I've tried everything. The rheumatoid arthritis, I have tried so many different options to heal this, both pharmaceutically and holistically and hormonally and diet and all these different, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. However, when you have disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, beliefs start targeting your brain. Beliefs, lies, really, they're lies. They feel really true, but they're lies that try to keep you stagnant. So over time, these beliefs become loops your brain replays every time you feel let down. So the goal isn't to stop being disappointed, because that's not going to change. It is to recognize what each disappointment taught you about yourself and begin to heal that story. So healing disappointment isn't about changing what happened. It's about changing what you believe because of it. So it's really taking the time of looking at the beliefs that got created because of the disappointment and looking and going, man, this belief is really rooted deep, and it's something that has kept me in a loop and has kept me stuck, that I have attached to every single disappointment in my life. And again, healing disappointment isn't about changing what happened. It's about changing what you believe because of it. Now, I'm going to bring something up that can be a little weird, but I'm going to talk about it. It's a question that I think is really important that we all ask ourselves. Not just in the disappointment realm, but anything that can be attached to this. Are you addicted to being disappointed? So if you feel like you navigate disappointment all the time, and it's something is like all of these things, remember the beliefs, is I'm not good enough, nothing works out for me, I've tried everything, I've tried every single diet, I've tried every single job, this happens, that happens, I can't get this. It might be worth looking at. Just look at it. What if you are addicted to disappointment? I know it sounds wild, but hear me out. Dopamine isn't just a happy chemical. It's the brain's reward for expectation and anticipation, not necessarily success. Remember, dopamine is also a pain reliever and a pleasure producer. And our bodies will do anything to get it. And that's why the word dope, think about that. You've heard me say this in all the other podcasts or my teachings. Dope is in the word dopamine. And an addict will do anything to get the next hit. So if you are addicted to dopamine and disappointment is your drug, you might want to look at, holy cow, I'm always disappointed in traffic. I'm always disappointed in my relationships. I'm always disappointed that my show got canceled or all of these things. You might want to take some time and take stock on, are you addicted to disappointment? Because if disappointment and rejection become familiar, your brain might unconsciously seek out similar patterns just to get the dopamine hit that comes from the cycle of hope, crash, relief. Hope, crash, relief. That's why you may find yourself repeating the same kinds of relationships, jobs, or habits that end in letdowns. If disappointment has become your comfort zone, your nervous system isn't broken. It's just stuck in a pattern that's used to feeling safer than having hope. Having hope is a risk. Having hope and being hopeful is a risk because there have been so many disappointments, I'm sure, that have come because you've hoped for something and then it hasn't happened. However, when you live in a mindset, in a state of hope, then you create that energy and you create that mindset that even if there is disappointment, the hope isn't gone. Is there something else? Is there something new that I can learn? And we'll talk a little bit about that as we move into healing through conscious awareness. Let's go through step 1. How do you heal from being stuck in a loop or just period from being disappointed? Step 1 is recognize and name the disappointment. It's not wrong or bad. It's just sad. Allow yourself to feel it. The disappointment that I had with doing all of this stuff, with having the surgery to remove this infected tooth and having all of this hope. And then when it didn't produce the results I was hoping for, I crashed. But what I had to do was recognize it and name the disappointment and allow myself to feel it. Allow myself to express it. I had to verbalize it because I was keeping it trapped on the inside, thinking I'm just going to be able to sort it out. And finally, I did hear it out to some people, just like a little bit here, a little bit there, trusted friends and my husband. And then finally, one evening, I just bleh. And it was the bleh that I needed. I hadn't taken the time to really put words and allow myself to feel the disappointment. I just kept it trapped inside. Step 2, it is so important to grieve the disappointment. You have permission to feel the loss of what didn't happen. Grief is how your body completes the cycle of emotional energy. So taking the time to grieve this disappointment, I have cried. I have allowed myself to grieve this because it is something that I have lived with RA for a really long time. It is painful and it sucks. And I live in daily pain. And so I allowed myself and gave myself permission to grieve and cry. And just because I have tears now doesn't mean I haven't done the process. It's just me talking about it, which still brings up some of the sadness. However, right now, I am not living in the disappointment. I am not living in the weight and the pain of what didn't happen or what I had hoped to have happened. Step 3, I want you to take some time to reflect on patterns. This goes back to talking about maybe being addicted to disappointment. Is this disappointment a one-time thing, or is it part of a deeper cycle? It's really important to step outside of yourself and become the observer of self and look at, is this a pattern? Do I keep applying for jobs that are going to keep disappointing me? And is that a pattern? And looking at that pattern, maybe there needs to be some tweaks in your resume or a look at your educational background and taking some time to look at, is there a pattern? Is there a relational pattern that keeps putting you in relationships that continually disappoint you? And it's important to look at the people you are trying to become in relationship with, but also your experience of yourself within those relational patterns. Because if you are addicted to disappointment, you are going to keep putting yourself in places and scenarios and experiences that repeat the disappointment pattern. Number 4, identify the belief behind it. What story did this disappointment tell you about yourself? And is it true? So the story of the RA and the multiple different things I have tried and me getting the infected root extracted that I didn't even know I had, that had a severe infection, and looking at this and identifying, is there a belief attached to disappointment? Like, nothing's ever going to work. I will tell you, when I was in the pit of disappointment this last month, that thought crossed my mind. I might have entertained it a little bit. Forget it. I'm just going to give up. Like I've tried everything, which is not true. I have not tried everything. And if I have a belief system of nothing's ever going to work, and I'm not worthy to be healed, or there's something wrong with me. I want to look at those belief systems and track where it came from, because more than likely it's not a new belief system. It's just getting attached to this disappointment. When those belief systems would come up, the old belief or even something that might have surprised me, I looked at it and said, hold on, is this true? It is not true. I am worthy to be healed. I have not tried every single thing. And I am worthy to keep discovering health and wholeness for my body because I'm worth it. Taking that time to ask yourself those same questions. Is this true? The beliefs that are saying you're dumb, you're not enough, or there's something wrong with you, you're not smart enough, those are not true. And usually when we look at them, that has a history of a belief system that has tried to keep me stuck in old patterns. Now let's go to step number 5. Choose a new response. Learn, forgive, move forward with compassion. Learn, forgive, move forward with compassion. Learn about yourself, learn about the scenario, learn about the disappointment. Forgive if there's a relational issue, forgive other people. And please go listen to some of my forgiveness teachings, because it's not about forgive and forget. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Forgiveness is a surrendering a person of their offense and allowing them to carry their actions that were against you. The other part of forgiveness is you forgiving yourself. I forgave myself for the ways that I stayed trapped in this past month. I forgave myself for holding on to such pain and allowing myself to stay in such a loop of disappointment and frustration. And so that forgiveness of not just maybe relational with a person or something that you're discovering about yourself and relationship-wise now, where you're forgiving other people, but take some time to forgive yourself, because you also carried stuff that turned around and attacked you for whatever reason. So that forgiveness for self, and then moving forward with compassion, where you love yourself to health. You look at the situation and the scenario and go, I have compassion for my situation. I'm going to have compassion toward myself. And when you start having compassion connected with curiosity, that is going to relieve shame. And that is going to release you from the pressures of resistance that's trying to hold you and keep you stuck in a loop. So healing disappointment means choosing hope again and again until your body starts to believe it's safe to dream. For me, looking at the RA story again, the rheumatoid arthritis, I'm going to continue to have hope that there is something out there that will heal me. And I may or may not experience disappointment again. However, I'm going to allow myself to dream and stay in a solution-focused mindset instead of problem-focused inside myself, beating myself up and being disappointed at all costs. Healing disappointment means choosing hope again and again until your body starts to believe it's safe to dream. When you move from that survival part of just trying to hang on to life and you move up into the creation part where you are connected and loved and whole and have compassion, that's the place that you can start dreaming again and having hope again. Let's talk about the power in the pain. So disappointment can be the very thing that clears the way for alignment. It teaches discernment, boundaries, and resilience. When you face it consciously, you transform fear into freedom. Look outside of yourself at the disappointment and you face it consciously. You stay connected to self and say, yes, I am naming the disappointment. All of that list, the recognizing and naming disappointment, grieving it, reflecting on patterns, identify the belief behind it, and choose a new response. These are all ways to stay conscious so you can transform fear into freedom. Disappointment isn't a dead end. It is a doorway to deeper healing. Disappointment is one of those emotions that tries to protect us. But if we never pause to understand it, it ends up defining us. When you allow yourself to grieve and learn from disappointment, you stop living from fear and start living in freedom. Remember, you are not your disappointments. They may shape your story, but they don't get to write your ending. So today, take a deep breath, grieve what didn't go as planned, then look for the wisdom in the wound, because that's where your next spark of hope begins. You're not broken, you're becoming. And that's the power of disappointment. I hope you have a beautiful, blazy, fiery day as you navigate and connect to hope, healing, and heal from disappointment. I will see you next week in our next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Be a Blaze podcast. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't keep the fire to yourself. Follow, like, download, and share it with a friend who needs the fire. Let's keep blazing trails together. This is Polly Hamp, and I will see you next time.